That was footage at the Ecuadorian embassy a few years back and under surveillance by a company called UC Global. We are going to talk about this evil outfit that worked for Sheldon Adelson in Las Vegas, who was working for Mike Pompeo to spy on Julian Assange.
There is an ongoing investigation into illegal activity by this Spanish security contractor, UC Global, run by former Spanish Special Forces officer David Morales, by a Spanish court. And a Spanish judge authorized a secret, basically like a secret plan to arrest Morales, obtain all of his phones, de-encrypt the data in his phones, obtain company emails, after company employees and a former business partner of Morales came forward to Julian Assange's legal team and basically divulged that they were spying on Assange, his lawyers, his American friends, including you, journalists, and even Ecuadorian diplomats at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. They were conducting illegal activity, and it appears pretty clear that they were doing it on behalf of Mike Pompeo's CIA. I've identified the middlemen, the people who were kind of the front for this vast spying ring, and these are the directors of Sheldon Adelson's security team at Las Vegas Sands.
Okay, so that was from Randy Credico's Assange Countdown to Freedom interview with Max Blumenthal of the Gray Zone News. And the reason I played that is because we had kind of a breaking story today. Give me 1 second, I will share this. Let's see, do we have? Okay, we've got some people in the backstage here. Okay, all right. And Jim, you can come on whenever you're ready. I'll pull you up. So this was yesterday, I believe, and here we go. So it's kind of complicated if you're not familiar with it. Basically, as that short clip explained, the CIA was spying on Assange in the embassy through this other Spanish security outfit. And here, let me bring in Jim. Okay, he's not connected. And so they, let's see, hold on a second. So what's happened now is some files have just disappeared from his phone, from the security guy, David Morales, who was communicating with the CIA about, whatever footage and stuff that they were collecting on Assange, which, I mean, this violated attorney-client privilege. But at any rate, so yeah, the things that are missing include all of the messaging apps. So there was an interesting part here, though. Let's see. So let's see. Yeah, so all of the things like WhatsApp, Signal, all of those, they can't access. But there was something like this external keyboard, I guess, that was used. So they were somehow able to see some keystrokes and have been able to partially rescue some of the conversations in English that were about the embassy, Assange, and a CIA agent going by PAISA. Somebody linked to a CIA agent. So at any rate, very interesting stuff. And it just kind of shows you that, all of this stuff that is not really, shouldn't be, it's certainly not just, is happening with Assange. I mean, Mills Meltzer has pointed out before many times that, this violation of attorney-client privilege, a case would be thrown out. So at any rate, I wanted to open with that because that was just news yesterday, but we will jump right in. We've got, let's see, Halo. I'm going to go ahead and bring you in if you'd like. So Halo is an activist, not a candidate, but all right, so we'll just go around. Phil, we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm Phil Anderson. I'm running for United States Senate in Wisconsin. I'm an independent candidate, but my background is in libertarian politics. And I've been following the Assange situation and all of the ways that it's manifested itself throughout American and world politics for years and years now. So I'm happy to be a guest a repeat guest, I guess, on this broadcast. I'm very grateful that Kelly and Matt do this as well, because I think more and more people need to be made aware of the issue and how pervasive, how important this issue is all throughout American and world politics, and not just about the First Amendment and not just about Julian Assange.
Right. Okay, and so we also have a new candidate today, Cheryl, who is in Maryland's 8th district, right?
Yes, District 8, Congressional District 8. I'm running against Jamie Raskin.
Right.
I'm sorry, hold on. Charlie, stop.
It's okay. I have one of those too.
It never fails. So my dog is going to be 17.
Oh.
He sleeps most of the time, and until I'm on a Zoom call or Skype or something. Anyway, yes, back to me. Yes, so I'm running for Congressional District 8 against Jamie Raskin, probably one of the biggest deep state members that there are. And I too have been following the Julian Assange tragedy, I should say, because without him, we wouldn't know half of what we know now. He's a hero to me, and I will do whatever I can when I'm elected, should I be elected, to ensure his freedom and his safety. And he will be heralded as a hero, period.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and Jim Atkinson, you're Pennsylvania's 11th?
Yeah, 11th Congressional District, running against a very MAGA Lloyd Smucker. And this is a real uphill race. We have to do these. I think it's just wrong to let a MAGA Republican run unopposed. So I threw my hat in the ring. And, on the Assange issue, I think that journalistic freedom is just so important. I think that we have an increasingly corporate-run world, and the deep state is real, and that runs against the grain of democracy. And to preserve democracy, or bring it back maybe at this point, I just think that we need to lighten up on whistleblowers. I'm aware that what he did is technically illegal under many laws, so on and so forth. He's already paid he's done the time for the crime he did, and if in fact it was a crime, I think it was probably more of a benefit to society. So when I saw that there's bipartisan support to put this whole thing behind us, I got interested, and here I am.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I love to show this picture because I joke about it. These people probably wouldn't ever even sit at a lunch table together.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. It's really, if once people understand this case and what's at stake, you realize it really is not about party. And we have to set that aside. So we hope, I mean, these are the ones that have signed House Resolution 934. There were a lot more that have signed the McGovern letter that came a couple months beforehand. So I don't know what the holdup is with them signing the rest, or the rest of them signing it. But we keep putting pressure on them, and I guess this would be a good time. We'll let Halo jump in here and tell what you're doing with the postcard stuff, and I'll see if I can pull up an image of those while you're talking.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm an Assange activist. I am based in Oklahoma, but the campaign here tends to be like nationwide. And just for what Jim had said, Julian actually hasn't been charged with a crime throughout all of this. They want to bring him here so they can charge him with a crime, but he didn't commit any. And he isn't a whistleblower. He's a journalist and a publisher. And so the whistleblower with the court case that he's going through, it was Chelsea Manning, who is already out of prison. Anyway, but we're doing this massive postcard drive nationwide. Do you have a screen of the postcards?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, hold on one second. I'll pull it up. We do.
And we're working with candidates all over the country. And if y'all are amenable, I would love to send you some of these. They're these postcards, and they say Free Assange, Election 2024. And we're making posters with those as well. But basically, we're wanting to, anybody that supports, any candidate that supports Julian, if you'd be willing to have like a little table at one of your events or something. And if you are in a place where we have an on the ground supporter, we're happy to send them to man the table and send all the supplies you would need. Right now, there is a resolution in the House about this, House Resolution 934, basically stating that, no, we demand that this is still our First Amendment, basically saying like journalistic practices are part of a free press and you should drop the charges against Julian Assange. So that's what we're working on, and it's kind of a massive campaign all throughout the United States. So if you're interested in teaming up that way, Kelly can give you my details, or you can find me on Twitter at Halo Benson. And I really hope you guys win. Like whatever you're running for, anybody that stands with Julian stands for our Constitution. I think it's really important we get back to that. So thank you guys so much for throwing your hat in the rings and taking on this big fight like this.
Yeah, and we have already had a couple of different, already candidates have Assange activists come to their, Misty Winston went to Michael Harbaugh's campaign kickoff event in Ohio. That was great. And really just we just have to keep talking about this because there's still such a media blackout. It was where it was just like a lot of smears and a lot of misinformation and, about confusing the whistleblower published. It is a lot to take in, and most people don't understand all the details. I mean, I've been doing this for years and I can't regurgitate all of the details about it. I mean, it's really complicated, especially when you start digging into all the legal stuff. It's like,
well, they complicate it. They complicate it. It's by design. The process
right, of course.
Punishment. It's lawfare everywhere. Yep. I mean, to waking up to the news of, oh, they can't find the phone now, or they can't find the evidence of, I mean, I feel like I'm one of the people that's actually not in that lawsuit, but according to reports, they took all his stuff. Like the Americans came in and took all of Julian's correspondence, all his personal items, right from the embassy. So any of us that had written to him and said, we're doing this in this state, because, back then his mother would encourage us to write him and let him know what actions we were doing on his behalf or whatever. So there are like thousands of people all over the world, but hundreds in the US that participated in that action. They took our stuff too, and they keep this case is so complex, but it's actually not. It's a very black and white issue. They have made it complex. The deep state, like what Jim was talking about, just right. the process, the bureaucracy of our fascist government.
And a lot of people might not know, I should have gone right into this as well, but so there's another lawsuit where attorneys and journalists and friends, American citizens that visited Assange in the embassy, are suing the CIA. And you can find, I think, the Dissenter, there are a lot of good places that have written about it, but so far they're advancing. Like the CIA tried to have it dismissed, and the judge said no. I don't know the last. I'm not sure what's happening next with that, but I know that happened like in December. So, but so far, I mean, it seems kind of shocking that a judge would be on the side of the people, but that's what they did because it was a violation of their First Amendment. I mean, they had their phones taken, and well, I know Stefania Morizzi, who's Italian, but I mean, there are pictures you can see of where they took her phone apart, and like, I guess we're gathering all the data from that. So,
well, we might see more and more influence over those judges the higher it goes up in the judicial system, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. So this is. Yeah, this is in New York. I don't know that much about that judge. I try to join whenever there's an update. Like there's usually a panel discussion about the case whenever there is one, but I haven't seen one recently. I don't know, Halo, do you know any more about that, like currently?
No, I think it's more of a wait and see, just like every, this long process. But I also want to say one of the things that bothers me the most about Julian's extradition case, and them asking for assurances that he would be given a First Amendment rights, and them saying, well, he's not American. As an American, I personally feel like First Amendment, period. I don't care what you're doing over there. Like Americans, I think the average American feels like if you don't have First Amendment protections anywhere in the world, you should. Do you know what I mean? But like saying
Yeah.
that, but then trying to pretend that it's actually an issue when this is an espionage case, an Espionage Act case, and there is no, even as an American, I wouldn't have my First Amendment rights because that's not how that works with the Espionage Act. Do you know what I mean? So it's just this layer upon layer of bullshit, quite frankly.
No, you're right.
And
Absolutely right.
it's too much, but I don't know. We're at a hurry up and wait in that case as well.
I just wish, I've been on a few spaces with Stella. I'm sure you were on there too, Halo, both of you. They were huge, ginormous spaces. He has so much support and love, and certainly we're there to support Stella. But, for me, I think about it often, how, sickly he is. His life is in danger. Why can't Millet give him amnesty in Argentina? Is there a pathway for that, and then we deal with his amnesty in Argentina until we can sort of help clear out the deep state? Hopefully that happens, this elections cycle on some level. That kind of seems rudimentary. I know, trust me, I know how I sound, but that to me would be such a great.
It's a matter of opinion. Like a lot, us activists, sometimes when we're getting together organized and we speculate, why don't the lawyers do this? Or I wish they were doing that. Or is there, well, one, they can't tell us, but I do know that because it's been 9 years for me fighting in this movement. Okay. And watching it from, this perspective or whatever. But it seems to me that Julian seems to like kind of be very, super principled about things. And it's more of I'm not trying to dodge. You need to drop the charges. And recently Stella did an interview and she's like, I don't care how he's freed. I just want him free. And that's, of course, honestly, at this point, 9 years in, that's my perspective too. I don't care how. Just let this man go live his life. Like he did this great thing for the whole world.
Yes.
And he's in jail, But I think that for him in the way that he is with being principled, it's sort of like, no, drop the charges. Otherwise, our First Amendment as Americans is entirely at risk. And everybody's in the rest of the world, every journalist will have to worry about government overreach from, extrajudicial, like from the United States. We don't get to go to other countries and say, hey, I don't like that you wrote the truth about me. That's not so I think that's probably something that gets factored into when they're talking about what tactics to take or whatever, because he's, by everyone's accounts, an incredibly principled man. Do you know what I mean? So I think that it's him doing one more service for us.
That makes sense. It's just one of those situations where I know you feel it as well, that my heart just breaks, and I just want him to be safe and secure.
And I want his family to be.
I would not mess around.
Relax.
Bring him over. I'm giving him amnesty. Then we go from there, and then maybe get some sort of a new process started, if you will. Again, I have no idea if that's even possible.
Well, hopefully, with the appeal dates coming up in July, we're closer than we've ever been to seeing him free. I don't explain to people on the street anymore who Julian Assange is. 8 years ago, when I would say WikiLeaks, they didn't even know, they're like, do you mean Wikipedia? So like everybody knows his name. They might not know oh, is that the WikiLeaks guy? They might not know details, but they know that. So people are waking up. There's more support than there's ever been.
Yeah.
And this, doing these nationwide, this is like the 4th kind of wave of different postcard designs and stuff that we've sent all over the country. Like there's so much support.
Well, Jim, I have a question for you. I mean, running as a Democrat, I mean, I'll just say the elephant or the donkey in the room is that I have the hardest time getting Democrats to join this. It has been.
Yeah, Jim, what's up with that?
What's up with that?
I'm teasing you.
I'll put you on the spot here.
No,
but
you seem like a very reasonable person.
Hey,
so.
Well, I mean, I think it's because of 2016, right?
Let me answer with a question. Why won't hardly any Democrats stand up to IPAC? Because they're terrified. We're afraid of our own shadow. That's the problem.
Oh,
now,
Jim.
I'm only half joking because I want Democrats to just have bigger balls, just meet the challenge, stand up for principles, be more principled, be more disciplined. We can't all just be politicians all the time. We have to be people with principles and a backbone, and we have to be not flag waving, politicians, but constitution waving politicians. We have to understand the underlying principles of the First Amendment and the rest of the Constitution and uphold that. That's actually what you take your oath to defend. Okay. And I absolutely agree that in the spirit of the First Amendment, the free speech, if they can call influential money in Washington, D.C. a form of speech, okay, why can't they call a leak a form of speech when actually what you're speaking with a leak is the goddamn truth? You're just letting the truth out. This is what the cables have in them. You want to read it? Have a peek. And yeah, it embarrasses the hell out of the deep state. It embarrasses them. But you know what? It's their behavior that got them embarrassed. What if they were more professional, right? So, I mean, why aren't more Democrats getting behind it? The biggest problem I think with Democrats, my fellow Democrats, is they tend to frame themselves, contrasting themselves against the background of the Republicans, as if that matters. I don't want to be too different from the Republicans. I'll seem like a communist. You know what? Republicans are completely off the rails. Ignore them. Just stand on principle. That's what I say. And defend it if people call you on it. Does that more or less answer the question?
Well, Cheryl seems pretty reasonable here. She's a Republican. But I think, they're different flavors of
reasonable too. So
well, okay, wait.
Cheryl, work well together. I have a
question. I have a question. You're probably, I'm guessing you might be a moderate Republican, or are you moderate?
You know what? It's called Make America Great Again.
Okay.
And I believe in making America great again, and I believe in America first.
Me too.
So there you go. So
I don't like Donald Trump, though.
That's fine. You know what? I don't like everything he says either.
I'm not going to get off on that, though.
I'm not so much far-right lunatic, but yeah. So,
I joke about it here that the last thing I want to ever do on this platform is police speech, but we do try to stay off of those topics because we do have people.
We'll self-moderate.
But actually, I love that, Jim. You know what, Jim? I agree with everything you said, aside from the MAGA digs. But again, we are on the same page. That's what I love about forums like this. We're on the same page.
All right. Well, I volunteer to be unreasonable then.
Okay. It's always you being unreasonable.
And I'll just start with this. I have a hard time when people who are well-meaning and patriotic and understand the issues run as Democrats and Republicans, because I think from a libertarian perspective, they're really two sides of the same coin, and you guys are exceptions, and the people that signed on to House Resolution 934 are exceptions, and maybe even tokens, and being allowed to do that so that both Democrats and Republicans can say that they've got dissenters among their ranks when they really don't want that. But back to the larger issue, and actually all the way back to the article and the story that you talked about in the beginning, Kelly. It's not surprising to me that all this stuff is going on with phones and with data and software not being able to be broken into and apps being stolen and that sort of thing, because the deep state or the empire, whatever you want to call it, has tremendous influence all over the entire world and does not care at all about the Constitution and people's rights. And it's not just about the Assange situation and the First Amendment. We can see how they use and abuse defensive alliances to do what they want and to hide misdoings. Yeah. NATO and other organizations that we belong to. We can see how the federal government has involved themselves in having backdoors to Google and Facebook and Microsoft and et cetera, and how they could have easily have a backdoor in and got rid of that data. And we can see how easily and happily they'll topple governments. Even the situation in Ecuador that resulted in Julian, his status is changing, even though they were spying on already, his status changing in the Ecuadorian embassy in England was about a government change in Ecuador that the CIA helped along. So they'll stop at nothing and care about nothing to do all of these things. So to appeal to the Constitution, I have very strong feelings about the Constitution and about how that applies to everybody. Remember, those founding documents talk about these rights being natural law and belonging to everybody, not just Americans. That's pretty much out the window with our current foreign policy. But we should make sure that we understand the bigger picture, and that is the situation with Julian is a symptom, a pretty obvious one to us, but a symptom of the deep state, the empire, whatever you want to call it, the duopoly, controlling the entire world, if at all possible, with the exception of Russia, China, BRICS, whatever, and wanting to hide their activities. So that's why they persecute journalists like Julian and whoever else they want to persecute. That's why they topple governments. That's why he'll never be moved to Argentina, even if Milei wants him, because our deep state, our government's deep state, has such deep control over all of these things. British courts, foreign diplomats, this guy in Spain that was working for them. It's pretty much everywhere. And that's disheartening, but we have to identify the problem in order to fight it and educate people about it in order to gain support. And limiting it to just one man and one issue is, it's important to talk about it, but it's a much, much deeper, bigger problem than just that. And it involves both departments.
Hey, Phil, my brother, a year older than me, retired 2 years ago from the CIA. He did 25 years with them. And some of his cables were released by Assange. My brother would not be sitting here in friendly terms with this group. He's very, very hostile to, and we've discussed it a lot. And I tell him my side, and he tells me his side. I'm right, obviously. But the thing is, you're so right when you say that there are forces which are utterly unrelated to our quote unquote democracy, which drive our foreign policy. And those forces have to do with, big business and big monetary interests. And, the military industrial complex, which that communist Eisenhower told us all about, right? We get ourselves into all kinds of problems. We send young men off to die, young men and women off to die for problems that we ourselves poured the gasoline on the fire to make it a bigger problem. And I've been watching, I'm 60 years old. I've been watching this all my life. I grew up during the Vietnam War. It's sort of like just the same, rerun every time we go abroad with guns. And yeah, of course they want to cover their ass. And that's why, of course, it's, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's why it's so important that once in a while, at least, some of the hot magma from under that crust comes up in a volcano and we get to see what the hell's going on down there. And like I said earlier, if there's something wrong with that, that's debatable. And we do have a justice system for that. And as you pointed out earlier, he hasn't been charged. And I just think that, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And let this man out. Let him live his life. What we're basically saying, we're saying to Julian Assange, we're saying, you're going to be imprisoned in whatever kind of embassy imprisonment, you end up in. And there's a subtext also. The subtext is, if anybody does give you amnesty, oh, it's going to look like an accident, buddy, but you ain't going to last long. That's the subtext.
And when you see how our government behaves relative to our own constitution, that's supposed to be the law of the land, and when you see that the lobbyists write most of the bills,
Right.
and when you see that the candidates for at least the two major parties are basically handpicked, and in this election cycle there weren't real primaries nor real debates, at least not yet, then democracy and representative government are just illusions that the empire uses to make us think that things are working and that we can actually have control over anything, when we really don't. I mean, really, we don't at all.
You could almost say I'm running as a tourist. I just want to go in and see how this shit really works.
Well, that's a question I get sometimes, Jim, and you guys will get it too, if elected. How will you be treated? Will you immediately be ostracized by your parties? Will you get terrible community
It depends
assignments?
on how much I open my big mouth, and that is, of course, if the miracle happens and I actually get elected. I'm in a district that is 53% Republican, 31% Democrat. But in 2024, anything can happen, right?
Right.
But if I were to get elected, it would depend on how much I open my big mouth, because and I would try to be a quiet tourist until I get a good look at things.
Well, that's a good point. But then look at what happened to Julian. Look at what happened to Bobby Kennedy's dad and uncle. I think if it gets that far, then there are people that are going to get persecuted at least as bad as Julian is, ostracized, lies made about them.
Oh, it ain't over.
Fake charges,
It ain't over.
whatever that looks like. Once you become dangerous to them, really dangerous to them, and in the case of Julian, he was and is, they will do everything they can to suppress you, including just leave you to rot in prison at Belmarsh until you're dead.
Yeah, I pulled this up because I know, Philly, you've seen it, but this is a replica. This artist, I can't think of her name right now. It's Belmarsh Live is the website, German artist, but she created this, and it's a little, you can go in and experience what it's like to be in this cell, and it's crazy how small it is. And I mean, this is for publishing, and when you just, I don't know, it's just shocking. And I just don't think, some people still will say, oh, isn't he's in the embassy, right? Like, they don't even realize that he's in this prison more than 5 years now.
So, Kelly, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So, first of all, there are plenty of us candidates who are non-establishment, will not be bought, will not take money, certain PAC money, NGO money. That's just where I stand, period. I'm not sure where Jim or Phil stand, but you guys seem to be along the same path, that you're not, you are anti-establishment, anti-deep state, and we have to stick together, period. And there are many of us, thank goodness, this cycle. So we'll see how it plays out during the election cycle.
The public perception, the problem with the public perception, I would never in a campaign speech talk about the deep state, honestly. I just don't do it. Yeah. And I would not, even though I agree with
the establishment. I mean,
well, let me keep going. I agree with what you said. I am very much against the quote unquote establishment as it is today, because it is purely money driven. It just is. We've essentially outsourced the legislative branch of government to K Street, to lobbyists. That's kind of what's happening. You've got the right to lobby is in the First Amendment. It's the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Where in that does it say aboard your private jet, or by making massive campaign contributions, or promising dark money? Where does the money come in? Leon Panetta, the former head of the CIA, back when he was a congressman in the 1980s, he came right out and called it a system of legalized bribery.
Oh, yeah.
And that's your establishment. That's what we got today. And I think it runs very much against the spirit of our Constitution. And so, yeah, I'm in that sense anti-establishment. What I was starting out to say, though, is that if you go public on this, if you start to sound like a radical, then the public perception is you don't know or want to know how things really run, and you're just gonna screw it up. You're gonna stick a screwdriver in the spokes and screw it all up for everybody. Just let let us have the devil we know rather than risk the devil we don't know. So that's why I say it's better to run on more bread and butter issues, and healthcare, being one, economic injustice. Top 1/10 of 1% of Americans control $20 trillion in wealth. There's something to talk about in the campaign trail. And preservation of democracy. These kinds of bread and butter issues. And like I say, try to get into Congress as a tourist, and then start taking a look around and go, hey, now you can start talking about, overturning some of the establishment. And sorry, I talked too long.
No, I mean, that's a good strategy, I suppose. I guess I just feel like more and more people, at least I hope, are noticing exactly how corrupt it is, and that they would respond to you being, talking, maybe not saying deep state, but, part of what we're trying to do here, and Halo and I have talked about some plans like later on as we keep going, because I think we've got, 35 with you guys. I think that's 37 candidates so far, and then of course some are not winning their primaries if they're running Republican, Democrat, but we have a lot of libertarians, we have Greens, we have independents. And I'm just like envisioning like this coalition of people that when one person says something, then it might sound, people ignore it. But if it's a whole chorus of people saying the same thing.
Well, it's just like when we're in an meeting with activists or whatever. I'm a libertarian. I am friends with socialists and independents, and I don't have really any Democrat friends. You'll be my first, Jim, but lots of Trump people. I live in Oklahoma, so everybody here is a Trump person almost. But there is a mad respect I'm seeing from the millennials and the Gen Zers for the people that doesn't matter what color I'm running with or whatever. They don't want to discuss the same, speaking for the millennials and the Gen Zers, they don't want to talk about the same things that have been talked about for the last 50 years and nothing's changed. They don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about why the hell does Europe get, 2 months paid vacation. They want to talk about why are our roads the way that they are if my taxes are going up. They want to talk about, well, why is my government deciding that I don't have any body sovereignty, whether it's trying to make you take a vaccine or trying to make you have a baby that you don't want to have because of a rapist or whatever. There are real world issues, and people are starting to find that they can't just stand on their ideology. Here in Oklahoma, they made it where you just can't get an abortion, right? Well, you know what that actually means? One of our neighbors, 8 months pregnant, her baby dies inside her. So she didn't get to go, and they put her out, and she have a DNC and go home and cry with her mom. She had to carry it in her for a few weeks and push it out. She had to birth a known dead baby. I can't even, as a mother, imagine the trauma. People aren't trying to talk about healthcare. They're trying to talk about that. Why are we losing all of our basic human rights? How many people took the jab when they didn't want to because of their job or their education or whatever? How many people are raising their rapist babies? People actually do. And when they find out, I think that, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be soapboxing, but technically it is what I do for a living.
I'm just going to get YouTube. YouTube's going to give me
underestimate at least the younger people, because they do want that. They do want to hear.
I have a question.
What Halo said to Jim's point, though, you're almost saying the same thing in different ways. It's
Yeah.
wise
Yeah.
political campaigning to talk to people about what they already care about, rather than trying to make them talk about or make them care about things that you care about or are important. Some
That's after you get
audiences,
elected.
some
After you get elected.
audiences, Assange is important to. Like, the more you trend younger, the issues are different. So it depends on who you're talking to. You talk healthcare, Social
Yeah.
Security with a certain demographic. You talk Assange, freedom, medical freedom, bodily autonomy with a different set. But it's
Yeah.
all the same thing.
I want to ask the question Matt usually asks, but Cheryl, you wanted to say something first. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask if this can be pretty powerful. I've run for office once prior for a county seat. Jim, our situations are very different. I'm in I believe, a plus 29 Democrat territory.
Okay.
So 29 Democrats for every one Republican. But again, it's 2024. People are being carjacked every day. We're paying triple in groceries. They can't afford gas. So people are feeling the pain. My question is that during my first run 2 years ago, I pledged to certain groups. Like, they asked me as a candidate, would you pledge to X, Y, and Z? So that might be something very powerful that we could all have somewhere on our signage or on our web pages or when we speak, that we pledge, because that's a very powerful message.
Right.
And however that sounds, basically it's, First Amendment rights.
I think campaign pledges are
Yeah, we can
important.
say we pledged. My opponent didn't. They don't care about free speech.
Well, can I explain
To
that?
me, that's a very powerful tactic. All
I
right,
can
Jim,
explain-
go ahead. Good Lord.
Well, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to get into a big argument about it, but I think that the problem is, let's face it, like Julian Assange is a kind of third rail issue. You touch it, you get shocked. It can be very easily worked against you, and it's not. It doesn't make the top 10 of public issues right now. Maybe it should. I mean, why not? But that has to do with the level of education of our public and how much people really care about such issues. The polity simply doesn't get that riled up about it. They should. They don't realize their freedom of information is being eroded right in front of them. They don't realize that because they don't watch PBS Frontline, and they don't read the right articles and books. But be that as it may, that's what you got.
But
So,
Jim, we also have to have integrity and run on our own integral genuineness. And that's how I'm going to operate. That's period. People
Well, so I'm going to ask,
questions, and I'm going to say the same answer, because that's how I feel genuinely. I'm not about pandering to anyone. So you can decide not to pledge. Period. No big deal. I'm just saying I would be happy to say I pledged. My opponent didn't. He doesn't care about.
well, I think Phil's right about knowing your audience. But I guess I'll ask the question now that Matt usually asks, is how can you, when you're campaigning, when you're out there, I mean, you guys are in totally different areas,
We are. We all are in very different areas. That's where
you should switch
from that mindset. So it's nothing personal, Jim or Phil.
we're geographically not far apart at all.
And a moderate Democrat at the same token. So I consider myself actually kind of a new Republican, if you will, because I'm literally like in the middle. Abortion, that's not the hill I'm going to die on. At some point, I hope that it's not going to go away. I mean, I want people to have the ability to do that. At some point, to me, morally, maybe people will decide not to electively do it just because they had a one-night stand or whatever. That's just me. But I want it to be done safe. It's in a legal environment. And nothing else kind of piled into that. So again, I think we all are on, the same page on many issues. It's funny how we are speaking from such different areas.
But like Jim said, though, you guys aren't that far. I think maybe about 2 hours apart from each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I'm probably 2 hours from
Oh,
you.
yeah,
Maybe
you're not far from me. I was just in Pennsylvania helping Scott Pressler register
Yeah.
voters. So, yeah.
But
Or how do you talk to people, just regular people, to bring this issue up? And Phil always has a good answer for it. Although I do have to push back on you on one part of it.
What?
You said something about do you like it that your government lies to you? And I think that, like, we know that, but I think a lot of people don't realize that. They don't understand that the mainstream
I think
media is lying. You know what I mean?
I'm going to push back then.
Okay.
We're going to get in a tussle.
Oh no.
I think people know their government has lied to them about wars, just to begin with. I think
Okay.
that's pretty obvious to most people. So, and that's the way I would answer the question that Matt would normally answer, but you're asking. And that is, you start with the question: Do you like it when, or do you object that your government lies to you and that it hides information from you, and then cite examples rather than starting with, do you care about the persecution of Julian Assange, a publisher / journalist? Start with, we know our government lies to us. We know they do. They lied about 9/11, and we went into Iraq right away. They told tons of documented lies about the Vietnam War. They've lied about all kinds of things. And so what is, and the Assange issue is just one more way to look at that, one more example of that. But that's one step farther, not just lying, but actively concealing the truth and not wanting us to discover the truth. And even if you mention like the TikTok ban for making them sell it to an American company or whatever, that's part of the same thing. They want to sterilize the information we receive, and then we don't find out what's really going on. And if you couch the Assange issue in all of that, most people will agree. That might not be their first issue, but when you get around to talking about this with people, then starting with the broader perspective, and then using Assange as an example, and then if they seem interested in continuing, then I think that's the best way to approach it, rather than just starting off with Assange specifically, because a lot of people, and I think at least a couple of the clips that we watched over the few episodes of this, talk about how Americans don't care as much because it's sort of an esoteric issue, because he's Australian, because he's in a British prison. Why should we care? Well, we should care. And those of us who care do care, because it's symptomatic of a much bigger issue of the way the government behaves relative to its citizens in terms of privacy and transparency.
yeah,
And there's censorship abilities, and they're trying to silence us, and they persecute anyone that speaks out. Anybody on the stage at some point, I don't care who you are, has been silenced on some level for speaking the truth about something.
And even their infiltration of social media.
The Twitter files. I mean, you have, organizations telling us what we are and aren't allowed to say, what they aren't and aren't allowed to promote, per the FBI and the CIA dealing directly with the founders of former Twitter and Facebook. So that's kind of a good tie-in, because it kind of just brings it home. And here's this man that's been sitting in prison for speaking the truth, for exposing the truth, period. So
well,
that's kind of a good
I think
segue.
we're all very, very clear on that. I mean, that is what he did. That's his crime.
Yeah.
Is pulling the lid off and showing what's in that snake pit. And apparently that's, we're in such a secret world nowadays that's a crime, apparently, but it shouldn't be. Here's a question. Does anybody have an idea approximately how many American citizens have a top secret or higher security clearance?
How many what? I missed
Isn't it
that.
over like 30,000 or something?
How many
It's
have a top secret?
It's probably
top secret
Oh,
government
yeah.
security clearance. Over 1 million.
Holy
What?
mackerel. Seriously.
When I served in the U.S. Army as a medic, I had to have one because I was in a Patriot Missile Battalion, and if there were a medical emergency, I'd have to go inside the command truck. So I needed to have a clearance and be fully cleared in case I went in there and saw something and then repeated it to some Soviet agent or whatever.
Sure. I mean, I have a friend who's a poli-sci professor, and when he took a job at the Naval Postgraduate School in California, he had to get security clearance. Every diplomat, every foreign service officer has to have one, but also anybody that works in defense. I mean, you have to have a clearance to do a lot of operational jobs that are civilian contract.
I work for Raytheon. Yeah, all the people that
At Boeing. I mean, there's but here's the thing. If if one out of 330 Americans has this clearance to know stuff, okay, and the rest of us don't. What is that in the big picture saying? I mean, what's to stop it from being 5 million 10 years from now, where you have where it becomes like, so almost like when in George Orwell, you're either a member of the party or you're not. you know and I actually worked in China for a number of years, just recently, actually from 2015 to 2019. And I got to know when I was over there just what the party means, and how college students will join the Communist Party as a career move, because if you're a party member, hey, it works kind of like a mafia, see. And if we have this large swath of Americans that have this clearance, that starts to become its own little mafia gang, its own little thing, right?
I don't know,
And
Jim. I don't know. I don't know if I agree, if I agree with you. We all knew different things. Somebody with a security clearance.
I'm not
Yeah,
looking for
clearance
agreement.
doesn't mean access.
I'm not looking for agreement. I'm looking just to be heard.
Yeah.
That's all.
Understood.
You don't have to agree with me. That's fine.
Well, that makes me think of, I'm going to pull up this clip here. I've been watching for the first time the Hunger Games with my daughter, and I had never seen it before.
First time? Oh my goodness.
I'd never, I mean, I knew.
It's so good. It's so good.
so
And
good.
so relevant.
So apropos. I mean, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, so you guys keep talking. I've got to find this clip real quick because it's so pertinent to what you just said. And yeah. Okay, well, actually, I have it here. Hold on. Okay, 1 second. This is the wonky way to do this here. Okay, here we go. So, rest in peace, Donald Sutherland, President Snow. And I happened to see this today. Hold on, let me get the volume up. And I really wanted. Okay, hopefully this will be loud enough.
The allegory is evident, in the comparison with the United States. And when I first read the script, I truly wanted to be a part of this project so that I could look back at the end of my life, which is pretty close, and say, I was a piece of this. Because for me, how she has presented this dilemma to young people and demanded from them a resolution, demanded from them a participation that could change things, because the world that my generation is leaving everyone is a disaster in every respect, environmentally, politically, socially, economically. So when I read it, I just begged to be a part of it, so that in the hope that it would be a catalyst for young people to get them off the seat of their pants that they've been sitting on for at least 2 generations, doing nothing. That somebody like Occupy or whomever use these films to generate from young people an energy that will take them into the voting booths in the United States in 2016 and make people responsible, politicians responsible for their words and their actions. Make them represent them.
Accountable.
It's
100%.
Somehow.
Yeah, isn't that great? I just happened upon that today. It was just, wow. So I thought, well, maybe it's 10 years late, 10 years, post when they came out. Didn't they come out like 2013, something like that?
Probably. Yeah, so I think I've seen the whole series.
And it's literally
20 times. It's so chilling.
I have too.
It's chilling,
It
right?
really, and what he
And
was
when I'm
talking
running
about,
for
I've never
county
seen that before,
council,
but what he was talking
and we're all
about
in
it being a
districts,
vehicle,
and
my group is, well,
Sorry, I
my
think
group here in Oklahoma is made up of almost entirely Gen Zs and millennials, and they relate to that. Like, it's so quick to make them see. I don't know.
yeah.
I think it's really useful. I think you're going to like it, Kelly.
Oh, I'm wearing the second one. Just started watching the second one, but it was what Jim said about if all these people are in sort of in the club, have the clearance. It made me think of all the people in the Capitol, that are living comfortably enough, and they kind of know, they have to know that this propaganda and what the system is. But we'll see how it. I hope it has a good ending.
And
That's a
certainly people that
two-party
have been there for decades and now are worth, millions, nearing billions of dollars. Come on, where's the civil service in that? It's time that we got politicians to work for the people again. Like, I know that in my district, my Representative Raskin doesn't work for the constituents here. He's too busy making a name for himself on a national level to raise to the ranks. So he's looking out for himself. The constituents here, which in my county encompasses over 1 million people, our constituency is 700,000 in my district. That he doesn't even come here. Like, he doesn't know what's going on here. I mean,
that's typical though.
So that's why I think it was Jim that whoever said I couldn't let X, Y, and Z go run unopposed. That's why I could not let Jamie Raskin go into his third term.
Where'd he go
Again?
Did we lose Jim? Oh, there he is.
So
No, I think the signal is.
Yeah, he just lost his signal. So anyway, I'm not trying to be on my soapbox, and I'm no one special. I'm just one of the people, honest to God. Like, I grew up in Montgomery County. I live here. It's my home. I love it. And it's going to hell in a handbasket, period.
Well, I think the big challenge is really going to be if there are, I personally am very happy to see third parties and independents advance, because that's where I feel like things can really change. But if you do happen to get elected and you're a Republican or a Democrat, I just hope people will try to not get into these, to stop arguing about those hot button issues that,
Right.
like, it's a huge country. We just have to accept that we're not going to agree on everything. And so we got to focus on the things we can agree on and get some of this done. Yeah. I'm afraid Jim lost his signal here.
Jim.
So
that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off between running as a Democrat, or Republican, or independent third party. Is you guys have to get through a primary against an establishment candidate, and that's very, very difficult, possible but difficult. Independent and third party candidates will be on the ballot in November, but with a very, but without that R or L or R or D behind her name, which makes it also difficult to get elected. In either case, being a dissenter is difficult, and no matter what party you do it from, I applaud that. They make it very difficult to be successful if you don't agree with what's already going on.
They do. They absolutely do. So I applaud you, Phil. Honestly, here in my area, we have closed primaries, so independents couldn't even vote. You had to be either a Democrat or a Republican. And if you ran as an independent, you had to have a certain number of signatures by a certain date.
Yeah.
And somehow they always mess it up whenever a good independent runs. They always mess it up, or they didn't get enough signatures. They question it. So we're attacked the minute we get on stage being anti-establishment. So again, I think that we, certainly the three of us here that are running, agree on more than we disagree. And that here right now, we outshine the House and the Senate put together combined.
Well, we agree on the large problem. We don't agree on particulars necessarily, but first, before there's going to be any changes in our government, there needs to be a change in how people get elected and how people work together, and identifying the primary issue, and that is anyone who dissents, regardless of their party, is locked out in some way, shape, or form. And until that's solved, we won't have a chance to argue about abortion, the economy, healthcare, foreign policy. None of that will happen until we all work together and realize that the larger issue is the corruption that runs the government. Until
agree.
any of us break through, then there can possibly be a chance for open discussion. But until then, we're all just throwing rocks from different angles at the same castle. We need to work together and build a battering ram and bash down the door together.
So maybe we should have like Zoom calls together often as candidates. That'd be awesome, because we come from all different types of demographics, but we still want to collectively show we agree, and we're in this to save our country and to make our country better and get it out of the hands of these, career politicians that have no interest in
If
the
people
well-being. Go ahead, Haley.
Taylor.
If people see people like you from all different parties getting together and talking without being disrespectful, they'll start to demand it from our rulers,
Right?
Or what? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is that perfect example. So, and I don't see any reason why down the line candidates for Assange couldn't be able to kind of amplify that thing and give people. I'm sorry, the activist in me is always going, I'm not trying to obligate you guys, but
No,
yeah.
I love it.
I think
He's
that there's
ready to
something
put
there.
you to work.
Hey, listen, that's why I brought up the pledge. I was trying to make us kind of like a group.
I think that's a brilliant idea. As an activist, I want your pledge.
But wait a minute, he's a Republican, although I call myself a new Republican. I'm a libertarian, and again, I'm a moderate Democrat at the same time. I am not an old GOP Republican. Sorry, that's just not me. But here I'm loving this conversation, and that's the only reason I brought up the pledge, because I just think this has been so powerful, and we shouldn't agree on everything. Who wants everybody to agree on everything? We don't want a robot society in any way, shape, or form. We want to have dissension. We want to have different solutions. We want to.
Am I back now? Or
You're back. So
Yeah,
you've been out a bit, Jim. So
Poor
you're
Jim.
I don't know what happened.
We should have pretended like we didn't hear him and mess with him for a little bit.
It's always
Sorry, Jim.
okay. We'll give you the floor now,
Jim,
Jim.
we see your lips moving, but I can't hear what you're saying.
See, I'm kind of trouble.
Okay.
I'm
Folks,
fierce in trouble.
I really want to say this. I feel this is very, very important. And I know that this discussion is about Assange, but it's also very important that we talk about the nuts and bolts of how we get to where we want to get to, right? And how politics does really need to change. And, I was talking to a group last night, and what I told them was, here's how I see it. Take whatever issue it is that you think is the number one issue, whether it be greedflation or the healthcare, industry, or, foreign policy, or the climate, or reproductive rights. Take whatever issue you want and think about that as if it were a branch on a tree, okay? And the trunk of that tree is one thing: the influence of money in politics, okay? And the question I put to them is this: in the Citizens United decision in 2010, when the Supreme Court declared, and it wasn't the first time, but it was the big one, where they declared that money is a constitutionally protected form of speech. It's protected under the First Amendment. Influential money in Washington, D.C., or in dark money, wherever you have it, is a form of speech. And what I asked them is, I said, okay, if money is a form of speech protected under the First Amendment, when money is talking, what other form of speech is going to be heard? Okay, I can tell you one form of speech that might be heard when money is talking, and that is any form of speech that agrees with what the money is saying. But every other form of speech is totally drowned out.
Mm-hmm.
And we know this is true. Money is not speech. Money is a gag on speech.
Yes.
And the reason, like, we're sitting around tonight, and all of our concerns are legitimate. All of our points are perfectly legitimate, I think. And yet we feel like we're running up a sand dune. The harder you run, the more sand gets behind you, but you never go up the hill, right?
No, Jim, we're going up the hill. Trust me. I can feel it in my bones. We're going to make a difference, at least. We're going to make a dent, if nothing else, aside from just winning. I'm telling you, nobody can determine what's in people's hearts and minds right now. Honestly, they can do all the data they want. They can poll every day. People are not going to make that decision until they're right there at the voting booth. And I'll tell you what, I know plenty of people that have changed their minds on many issues because they've witnessed it. And then they've been told what they're witnessing isn't really happening. That's really pissing them off. So, let's go in this 100%. Like I can tell you, you both are. We all are. Definitely include Assange in part of this, a huge part of this. And have no fear. We don't blink. We act like we're fearless. Don't listen to them when they say, freshmen, should we win? The first people that you're going to talk to are the CIA. They're going to come in and tell you how it's going to go. Because apparently that's very real. A lot of whistleblowers have come out to talk about that. I say, bring it on. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of anyone. So I'm not even trying to be a badass. I'm just not. And that's how we have to be. They don't like that. The establishment does not like when you say, no, I don't care. Bring it on. I'm not afraid of you. So I know I'm trying to sound badass, but that's not what I'm trying to do.
You're like a humble badass. There's some badassery there.
There's just something in the air. I'm telling you. I don't know. There's just something. I can't shake it. It's good. It's good though. I just feel like there's a difference, and I feel certainly with you two gentlemen and Halo and Kelly, we've got something on it.
Well, the trick is getting people, the regular people that are voting out there, to think that it's worth, because there's this narrative, of course, Phil, we've talked about this a lot, that a third party or independent or non-establishment candidate can't win, and the numbers just don't really play out with that. Like if you look and see in 2020, 80 million people didn't vote. So you find out why they didn't vote, because they don't think it matters. So if they just voted, then it would fix the problem.
It won't make any difference now.
It's ingrained.
The trick is that they have to be aware of you. They're not going to show up at the, insofar as people actually they'll still vote in person. They have to know what you're about before they can even activate this feeling of goodwill, civic responsibility, wanting freedom.
Right.
Which you're referencing, Cheryl. That's why I'm not here to promote my own campaign, but the reason I'm running as an independent, but in Wisconsin, you can put a statement of principle instead of party. So on the ballot, people will see disrupt the corruption on the ballot rather than the party. So that at least gives them an indication of what I stand for.
Yeah.
And to Jim's point, I've got, you have to reach out to people across every possible political barrier. On my campaign committee, on the 11 people that I trust the most and meet with every week, there is one socialist, 3 former MAGAs, and a communist. All people who recognize with us that the problem is not about the issues one by one, but Jim's identifying it as money in politics, which I agree with. The corruption of the money in politics, however you want to characterize that, that's the major issue. So insofar as we can reach beyond that and find people that agree with that, but then also the hard work of running a campaign as a dissenting R or D, or as a libertarian, or as an independent, is just making the general public aware of you somehow. And that requires a very powerful ground game, because generally mainstream media is not going to give you the time of day.
I'm in DC. They don't even want to, I don't exist right now. So.
Right.
Well, we don't have Matt here to say, okay, wrap it up. So,
actually,
Charlie's
about to bust, so I have to take him out.
So, Jim, because you were off for a minute, I'll give you the last word. You got cut off for a bit there. So.
Hey, Jim gets the last word. No, I'm joking.
Well, I guess that, if I can give the last word, I'll keep it short. But let's stay really focused. I think that we need to be, as we said tonight, very principled, and we need to be inspired, really, by the amount of suffering that Julian Assange has allowed to be brought on him in standing up for his principles. That jail cell, of an accommodation that you showed was pretty breathtaking. it's hard to imagine how a person wouldn't just have their mind collapse into some kind of severe suicidal depression, in that kind of situation. He's holding on, and that's amazing. And I think we owe it to him to do what we can to bring this person to freedom and to let him speak. My dream would be for him to be on a lecture tour. You have to have bodyguards, obviously, but a lecture tour, and be at the college campuses, the big universities, and be heard. Be heard. I mean, that's America. You don't have to agree with him. You can think he's a jackass, but let him be heard. And
Amen.
and
let
that's
it be with his family.
That's great.
that's it.
So,
That used to be American.
Yeah,
It's not American anymore.
I've got a new song, but I think I'm going to, because I'm having a little issue with my screen share, I think I'm going to use my trusty old Kill the Messenger. Phil, if you're not too tired of that one.
No.
Okay. Yeah, this is, it's just some.
But do our listeners know where to find Cheryl and Jim for their campaign?
Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
They know where to find me,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay, tell everybody where to find you. And then actually, Halo, you should tell again where to find you so we can get people doing the postcards too. And then we'll play the song. So Cheryl.
I'm Cheryl, the number 4, Maryland.com, and at Cheryl, the number 4, MOCO on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but I'm so throttled on both of those. X is where I'm at. So find me on X. I'm always speaking on spaces. I hope that Stella does another space or someone does one with Stella. It's always just, I hate to say it, just so wonderful just to hear her and speak with her. I adore her. So yeah. And actually, you guys, I'm an open book, so you can actually Google me and find my home address and my cell phone number. I get calls from constituents that aren't technically mine yet every week. So there you go. I'm already doing the job that my opponent hasn't done. But this has been amazing. Honest to God. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I'm glad you came. We don't have enough women on here. And,
Not that we're counting.
Right. Well, we don't typically, and that's partly because of the narrative around Assange, I believe, and also we don't have, I guess there just aren't as many women running, but okay, Jim, where can people find you?
www.atkinsonforcongress.com. That's ATKINSON for congress.com. And there's a button there, get involved, and you can just give your email address. And I'm actually answering most of those myself these days. And so AtkinsonforCongress.com.
Cool. Okay, Halo, tell everybody how to get the postcards.
Just DM me on Twitter. This batch that we have is very specifically targeted and will likely be gone, posted in the mail already by Monday. So if you want in, at Halo Benson on Twitter, I'm not calling it X. I'm not. Or Halo Lynn Benson at protonmail.com if you're not a Twitter person.
Okay, great. Well, Phil, good. Well, you have your thing up there. Anderson for Senate. Okay, got it. All right. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Okay. And there's always an invitation to come back if you like.
I would love to. I didn't realize this was a regular thing. I thought
we try to do most Thursdays. And
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Great to meet you guys. I'm so glad you came.
Thank you so much. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Whistle back in 2006 was a matter of a password and a couple of clicks to safely send files and protect the source while sharing all the important bits, of course. With a database that's searchable all around the earth, that exposed the rich and powerful, showed us what they're worth, showed us the corrupt ways they run affairs. From Iceland to the Indies to almost everywhere, making clothes transparent on emperors all round. Everywhere that whistleblowers are to be found. WikiLeaks was too effective, it had to be beaten out. Let there be no doubt. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Daniel Ellsberg blew the whistle on war crimes. He called out for someone to step up this time. With WikiLeaks' assistance, when Chelsea Manning did on torture and mass murder, she blew the lid. And the war on WikiLeaks went into overdrive as the authorities tried hard to make sure it couldn't survive. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Charges plucked from history, the Espionage Act is being used against Assange under the Extradition Pact. Not just Republican war criminals, but Democrats too had it out for him now for telling what he knew. When the DNC rigged the race, got Clinton the nomination, put Sanders in his place. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Now they'll call him a foreign agent, say he should be shot. They'll call him a narcissist, whatever defamation they got. They'll say he's not a journalist, unlike the ones in Moscow, reporting on the criminals that we allow reporters to report on. We give them the Nobel, while this Australian is caged and sent to hell. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner to die. Now they want to kill the messenger while most of us stand by, just waiting for this prisoner